Hello, my very good friends, and welcome to another episode of Time Between Times storytelling with me, Owen Staton. Just about to press record when I listened, and outside I heard something that I had not heard for what felt like an age. The birds are singing. The forest is alive with song. And that can only mean one thing. The wheel of the year is turning to summer. The nights are becoming brighter. And the darkness is being left behind, for a little while at least. This raises my spirits. This makes me feel happy. And at this time of year, I tend to dream crazy dreams, causing me to wake suddenly, my heart pounding. Sometimes these are terrifying, sometimes they are pleasant. But they are always welcome, for it means my imagination is alive. It's great to have you back here, at the fire pit, at the heart of the forest, for another tale traditionally told. There are good times ahead, my friends. The world will not go dark for a long while, and we can be together in light. So relax. Close your eyes if it's safe to do so. Sit back, take a deep breath, and awaken your imagination and let it ride on a tide of tales. Let's go to the fire pit at the heart of the forest. You look out of your window. You see the sky is grey, but it's not quite night, but not quite day. You get up, put on your coat, a lighter jacket now, and head to the front door. When you open the door, you never know what will happen. A famous author once said that when you set foot on a road, you never know where it will take you. But we know exactly where we are going, but we don't know what will happen when we get there. You walk along the pavement in the street where you live. Cars are zooming past, bikes flying faster than they should. And then you see it, the forest, with its trees that stretch to the sky. It's like a great wall in front of you, but a welcome wall, and one only certain people can pass, and you are one of those people. You know for a gap in the trees that leads to a winding path, that leads to the heart of the forest, and you choose to take it. Set in foot. You take a breath, turn around and leave the modern world behind, and set foot into the forest. The path winds round and round. You see the old mossy tower that has stood there for centuries. Who used to live there? What were their lives like? How cold was it at the darkest part of winter? And how beautiful was it when the sun was at its zenith? There's the old babbling brook. The water is so clear now. It's like it's embracing the light, having been for years in the centre of the mountain, weaving its way through. Here it is. You hop over it, and there in front of you is the fire pit at the heart of the forest. Your friends are gathering, all of them happy to see you. You shake hands, you hug. Every one of you is so glad to be here. The fire pit is surrounded by great logs taken from huge trees that have lived here for centuries. And you sit down and look up at that gap in the trees and see that it is neither night nor day. The sun has gone and the sky is grey. It's the time between times, the time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer thin. So thin that for a few moments you can reach into their realm, and for a few moments they can reach into ours. Now is the time that people see ghosts. Now is the time that people see lights in the sky. Now is the time that people have encounters with the Tylwyth Teg, the fairy folk, those that flit from tree to tree. They are as dangerous and as capricious as they are beautiful. But we watch them with wonder. The storyteller stands. He is about to bring his tale to life. Long ago and far away, in the north of Wales, there was a great abbey called Basingwork. There it was in green fields, Maes Glas, near Clwyd in North Wales. An ancient seat of learning, so beautiful. People would travel from miles around just to make a pilgrimage to this place of grace. There it was in ground so green that it seems like the sky was reflected in them. Basingwork, a Cistercian abbey where monks would make their lives, toiling the fields, their lost in prayer. Of course, until the great dissolution came, after Henry ordered all the abbeys to be taken down. And since then, it has become a cadaverous cornucopia of caustic, crushed cobbles that stood in the landscape like an oak in a forest of bushes. But our tale happens long ago, back in the 12th century, where a young monk called Brother Cadwas, who was making his life there at the abbey, had an incredible experience. It was on a day very much like today. The sun was out, but there was a greyness, a misty musk which hung over the abbey, which made it even more starkly beautiful. Every day around mid-morning he would go out and sit on a low wall outside and watch the world go by. People would come to toil the fields, animals would pass, and there, right next to the abbey, was a great forest that stretched for miles. He had seen the king's hunting parties go there one day, but for the most part it was just the sound of the wild that greeted him from those woods. He sat on the wall, eating some bread and cheese, and thinking about the life he had left behind and the life that he was now living. And he felt a contentness, knowing that for the rest of his years he would be here in Basingwork, and all was well. He finished his last bit of cheese and stood up, waiting to return to the abbey, waiting to return to prayer, waiting to return to his chores, when he suddenly heard something he did not expect. A distant song, ringing through the woods, the sound of a nightingale singing. It was not something that was common, not something that he had heard many times before. And Brother Cadwas listened, with wonder in his heart. Its song was so shrill and so beautiful that he felt his whole body relax. He thought he saw a flutter of wings, there on the outline of the trees leading into the woods. He rose from his seat and started to walk to the woods. He could still hear the song, echoing out over the fields. He looked around and saw that many others were doing their normal duties, and none of them seemed to react to the song. He looked again and peered into the woods. Even on a day like today, a bright day, it still seemed dark, but he could still hear the song being sung. He took a deep breath and stepped into the forest, stepped into shadow, leaving the world of the abbey behind. And step after step after step walked into the woods. The ground seemed to go down into a small dip, and then he came across an ancient stone wall that must have stood there since the time of the Romans. Even now, in the 12th century, that was still a long time before. And Brother Cadwas carried on walking. Onwards he went, still hearing the birds sing. till after what seemed like an eternity, but must have been no more than half a mile into the woods, he came across a small lake. And there was the bird, on a branch, in the middle of the lake, on a small island, no bigger than a tiny, tiny field. But there was a wooden boat. Brother Cadwas got in and rowed out to this small island, clambering on its bank. The nightingale stood and looked at him, as if it was someone he had known forever. Unbelievably, as soon as he stood up and looked at the bird, it flew down from its perch and landed on his shoulder, singing its song into his ear. He reached up with his hand, and the bird jumped down, settling in his palm. He stroked its head and felt a contentment he had not felt for a long time. And then the bird stepped forward and pecked the skin on the centre of his hand. There was a small piece of pain, and then the bird flew away. Brother Cadwas watched it fly high in the sky and lose itself in the clouds. And then he seemed to snap awake. He would be asked for, he would be looked for, so he returned to the boat. But it had gone. He looked around, not knowing where the boat had vanished to. Only moments before he had rowed across, but now it was not here. He knew the water was not deep, so lifted up his robes and waded back to the shore. He felt a little annoyed, a little cold, but knew he would soon dry. Then he went back into the woods, walked that half a mile through the forest, and emerged on the other side, to a sight he did not expect. The beautiful abbey that he called home, the one that he had spent his life, was in ruins, totally destroyed. The great walls fallen down, the windows long gone, the grass overgrown, and the fields left to grow like a forest. Shocked, he stepped forward and walked around, looking for his brothers, calling for his friends. But there was none around. Suddenly, he saw something else that was not there before. A small house in a strange shape at the edge of the trees, and he made his way to it. He knocked on the door, and after a while a woman answered. She looked at him as if she had seen a ghost. He tried to speak, but the words would not come, so she beckoned him inside. It was there, when he sat down, that he told his tale, that he had only moments before gone into the forest, but now he had returned to find the whole landscape changed. The woman spoke to him in a strange voice that he could barely understand. But she told him that there was a tale of a monk who 200 years ago had walked into the woods after the siren song of a nightingale and had never been seen since. She pulled a piece of cheese and gave it to Brother Cadwas, and as he held it in his hand, both of them turned around, and once again the bird's song filled through the air. The woman recalled that the monk seemed to have a look of panic upon his face. He lifted the cheese to his mouth and then crumbled into dust, leaving the lump of cheese to fall to the ground. The woman picked it up, opened the door, and there was no bird song, and the monk had gone. For hundreds of years since that happening, similar tales have been told in that area of the monk who walked into the woods after the beautiful song of a bird, only to vanish. And yet strangely he appears, at times that no one has measured, on days that nobody knows. He will walk out of the woods, but the moment someone shows him kindness, the moment someone gives him a gift, the moment that someone elects to speak with him, he crumbles to dust and vanishes. A sombre tale indeed, but one to be told on a day like today where the hope is bright, to remind us that darkness lives in some of the most beautiful places. Basingwork Abbey is still there today. Owned by Cadw, it is visited by thousands. But reports of the monk still wandering out from the woods to the song of nightingale's song are still reported, still told, still remembered. And here at the fire pit of the heart of the forest, at the time between times, the time it's neither night nor day, and the sun has gone, and the sky is grey, I have told it to you today. Thank you for listening, my friends. Diolch yn fawr am gwrando. If you like this podcast, please leave me a review wherever you have your pods, for that helps me greatly and helps other people to find us here at the heart of the forest. If you really want to support me as well, why not buy me a Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/Owen Staton, or join my Patreon crew at patreon.com/Owen Staton 7. In the meantime, enjoy, my friends. Take care. Nosta.